afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm thrilled to welcome you all to Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church. My name is James Browne. I am an elder here at this church, and a great pleasure to see all of you who have the good taste to show up and hear good music. For those of you who are new to this place, this congregation considers itself a community for people of faith or for people with no faith at all. In other words, no matter where you are or who you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you to return for any of our events, as well as our worship services on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Today, as part of our Jazz Vespers series, we are excited to have the Eddie Allen Aggregation as they present Before, During, and Now, the African American Journey in the United States. And before we turn things over to them, I'd like to introduce one of our longtime members, Clara Freeman, who will share this evening's sacred word and prayer.
Thanks, James. And good evening, everybody. I invite you to listen for a word from the divine as it echoes to us from the prophet Isaiah. Shout out, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob, their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interest on your fast day and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this a fast day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed be free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see the naked to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, Here I am. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall call for help, and he will say, Here I am. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. And now will you join me in prayer? Eternal Spirit, be present among us in this place, as we have heard your call for us this evening, to lose the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free, to share with the hungry, the poor, and the naked. We ask that you would stir our hearts to action, especially as we observe Black History Month. We pray that we might be a community that not only speaks about good news, but finds tangible and meaningful ways to offer it. We thank you for the opportunity to learn, grow, and reflect through this evening's program. We thank you for this fellowship and for the surrounding community. May we know your radical love and your gentle and welcoming presence among us now as we continue our time together.
Thank you very much and welcome. We open with this composition. It's an original composition entitled Grooves Mood, and that featured Tyler Bullock on piano, Patience Higgins on tenor saxophone, Mark McGowan on trumpet, and Alvester Garnett on drums. Now, I Got You, I Got the Feeling by James Browne. Blue Suede Shoes by Elvis Presley. Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. Can't Buy Me Love by The Beatles. Oh, and The Twist by Chubby Checker. I like that everybody started laughing, but you have no idea where I'm going with this, right? So the question is, what do all these tunes have in common with what we just played? No, you don't count. He said, same changes. That was pretty good, kind of close. All those tunes I named, James Brown, R&B, Elvis Presley, that was kind of a rockabilly. Should I Stay or Should I Go? That was rock, punk rock. The Beatles, rock pop. The Twist, R&B. All these tunes are based off the blues form. And that's what we just played. We played a blues. So it just goes to show, sometimes you ask people, well, we're gonna play a blues, and before they hear, it's like, oh man, I don't wanna hear blues. It says somebody died, somebody cheated on somebody lost a dog or something. See, but there are so many different levels to the blues. And so you get a chance to hear us play it this way, but you've also been listening to the blues forever, even when you didn't know you were. That just goes to show how deep the connection is in the roots of the music. Now we're going to continue with another selection. I need my notes to give you some information. From 1825 to 1857, in Manhattan, between 82nd Street and 89th Street, between 7th and 8th Avenue, that was an African-American community. The majority of the people who lived there owned homes. They were like property and homeowners. And then in 1853, the New York State Legislature decided that they wanted to do something different with that area. So through eminent domain, they kicked out all the people there. And that was just in one area. Now, throughout this entire area, property was owned by different immigrants, minorities, but this particular area was mostly African American. So in 1853, they imposed eminent domain, got rid of everybody in that area and then some, and this whole area was renamed Central Park. But prior to that, this one area of the black community was called Seneca Village. So the selection we're going to play now is entitled Seneca Village, and hopefully it reflects the good, prosperous times there. Thank you very much. That was Seneca Village, and that featured Jason Marshall on baritone saxophone. Mark Williams on trombone. Vitaly Golovnev on trumpet. And Don Braden on tenor sax. So now this next selection we're going to play is dedicated to paying tribute to a man of African descent. He is recognized as the founder of Chicago. What? Exactly. She said his last name, and I go with the first two names because I figure I'm going to screw up the rest anyway. But his first two names is Jean-Baptiste. Said he was born sometime before 1750, and he died on August 28th, 1818. He was a pioneer, a pioneersman. He not only did he's the founder of Chicago, and that's what we all know about him. But the other thing that I found interesting is they said he sold his Chicago River property in 1800 and moved to the port of St. Charles, Missouri, where basically he did the same thing there that he did finding Chicago. So what he did, he kind of like, hate to say wandered or wrong, but he was looking for an area where he could set up a trade as in trading goods. So he looked for a place that had, he didn't want just any place. It had to be somewhere that had a lot of traffic. And back during that period, the waterways were the key. So being next to Lake Michigan, that was the perfect place for him to set up shop. So he set up his trading post there, and it grew into Chicago, huge business, and then he sold it, and when he went to Missouri, he did the same thing there. He's not acknowledged as discovering or finding any place there, but just the fact that he was able to move around and set up a business like that was amazing. So this piece is dedicated to him, Jean-Baptiste. Thank you. Say hello. Hey, I'm not messing with that. And so with this piece, the image that I had, especially in the beginning of this piece, was to picture someone kind of going through the wilderness. And for me, during that period in that area, the music that kind of like stuck in my head would be something along the lines of more of a bluegrass. So that's kind of representing him as he finds his way looking for the perfect place to set up his business. Thank you very much. And that featured Dwayne Eubanks on trumpet, Mwanga Lukanza on trombone, Tyler Bullock on piano, Cleve Guyton on alto sax, and Patience Higgins on tenor sax.
You know, someone supposedly once asked the great Louis Armstrong his definition of good music. And he said, good music is the kind that has you feeling better after you heard it than you did before you heard it. I think we're hearing some good music.
Yeah.
We are very, very grateful for your presence, and we pray that you are enjoying your time here. We have a team of ushers who would like to now pass the plate for a free will offering, which you can participate in, or you can donate at lapcbrooklyn.org/donate. We thank you very much for your generosity in supporting the ministries of LAPC. And now more of that good music.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The next selection we're going to play during the offering is a piece that reflects my childhood in the Baptist church. Before the main service, we get there and we have to wait outside until they finish the early service. But whenever they would crack the door, I could hear them singing something not quite together, but together. And whenever we got to church early, I always enjoyed hearing it, and I was always puzzled by it because I couldn't hear who was in charge, who started it, but some kind of way, even though they weren't together, they were together. So the opening part of this piece will reflect that. And the selection we're going to play is an old spiritual, as people like to say. But in addition to it being an old spiritual, this was actually used as a code message during slavery. This tune and other pieces like this was used as coded messages in certain areas when whoever was coming connected to the Underground Railroad, or if somebody was coming who was going to help them get away and head north. One of the messages, especially if they were close to water, they would sing this piece, Wade in the Water. And when they sung it, that was their signal saying, nightfall, you go wherever the water is, and that's how we're going to head north. So we're going to play our version of Wade in the Water, and I hope this piece inspires you to dig deeply. let's see, that featured Mark Gross on alto saxophone. Clarence Bates on trombone. And Tyler Bullock on piano. So we opened with a blues that was shuffle. And then I named all these other people who took the blues and did it in different ways. So now we're going to do another blues in a different way. Enough said. That piece was entitled Hanging Out on the Corner, and it featured Tyler Bullock on piano, Dwayne Eubanks on trumpet, and if the opening wasn't killing enough, then you got a solo like a little bit past the middle, and if that wasn't enough, he definitely killed me with the cadenza on baritone saxophone, Jason Marshall. See, this next selection we're going to play. Okay. There's a book came out like a few years ago entitled The 1619 Project. But before this book came out, about 10 or 15 years before that, 10 or 15 years ago, Jet Magazine had an article in there called The Black Coming. And it was all about what later became a book, the 1619 Project. And basically what they talk about in this article was that the first blacks, the first Africans brought over here, they were brought over as indentured servants. They were actually traded. The supply ship needed supplies, so they traded Africans, and they had some white prisoners on the ship. So they traded both for supplies, and these people were indentured servants. So after they served their time, like 5 or 10 years, these indentured servants were free. They bought land. They used the court system, they had businesses, they owned property. And approximately 40 years after they were free, slavery became an institution in the United States. And these free people who had kids who were never slaves, they were stripped of everything. Their property was not bought from them, it was just taken. And some of these well, as you can say African Americans by then, some of these people were put into slavery, into bondage, as well as their kids who had never experienced any of that. And to me, that situation is worse than slavery because you've actually experienced freedom and you've lived in communities with these people, and now the government says none of that matters and all you have can be taken from you. So to see your neighbors and now all of a sudden they own you as property is, to me, that's even worse than just being put into slavery. It's like you've already seen freedom, you've already seen the light of day. So this piece we're going to play is entitled The Black Coming, and it's a 4-part movement, but we're only going to do the first 2. And the first movement is entitled Kidnapped, as they were taken from Africa. And the second movement is entitled Servitude. And the 2 movements we're not going to play is the third movement when they earn their freedom, and that's Jubilation. And the 4th movement is entitled Enslaved. But we're only going to do the first 2. Thank you very much. That was the Black Coming, and that featured Tyler Bullock on piano and Mark Williams on trombone. So now we're going to go from church to church. So this next piece we're going to play is entitled, Let the Church Say. There you go. One more again. Let the church say. Thank you. very much. At the beginning and at the end, we feature Tyler Bullock on piano. We have Mark Gross on alto saxophone. On tenor saxophone, we had Don Braden. On trumpet, we had Dwayne Eubanks. On trombone, we had Clarence Banks. On screaming trumpet, we had Marty Bound. Also on baritone saxophone, we had Jason Marshall. And now in churches, you have a minister, you have a reverend, you have a pastor. But in church, you have rhythm. And our rhythm on trumpet and plunger mute was Mark McGowan. Some of you may have heard this phrase as things, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I remember hearing that as a kid, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And it was always the older people who were saying that. So, being a kid, it's like I heard it and then I dismissed it because they obviously weren't saying anything I was supposed to hear. But then the older I got and started to experience the world, so to speak, and you say the more things change, the more they stay the same, it starts to make sense. And the more you learn, especially learning through history, you really start to understand how the more things change, the more they stay the same. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it can annoy you. It can really get you. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So this next selection we're going to play was written by an African American more than 15 years ago. 50 years ago. And the things he said back then, people were saying 50 years before him, and we're still saying them now. what's going on, and that featured Tyler Bullock on piano, Huaga Lapunza on trombone, Vitaly Golovnev on trumpet, and Don Braden on tenor saxophone.
Let's hear it once again. Let's show some appreciation. The Eddie Allen aggregation. What an aggregation. We want to thank you all for coming out and hope you've enjoyed your time. And we invite you back, whether it's for Jazz, Vespers, or one of our other events, or on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. for worship. We thank you. God bless. Good night.
I forgot to mention a few of the selections. The opener we played, Groups Move, Wade in the Water, and the complete version of The Black Coming is on our CD. If anybody would like to purchase a CD, please see me. They're $10 each, so feel free to purchase 17. Like I said, they're $10 each. You can get 2 for $37.50 or 3 for $69.39. I promise I'll have my calculator. I'll get it right. But thanks again for coming out. Thank you.